Just another one of these stories. You keep thinking they must be being made up. It's the sort of stories that the left go, oh, look at the right wing making these stories up. No, they're happening every single day. This is a story involving a man called Antonio Monteiro. Oh, he sounds nice, doesn't he? He's not nice. He's a Portuguese man, but he's been living in the UK for more than 10 years, and of course was able to stay as a result of the Brexit deal. That meant, of course, anyone who'd been living in the EU from the EU in Britain was welcome to stay. Of course, leading Brexiteer, absolutely welcome that. Apart from the fact that this was a guy who's not been good for Britain. Apparently he wanted to be a professional footballer. That didn't work out. Well, shame on that. So his life went off the rails. He didn't get a job. Between 2018 and 2023, he amassed multiple convictions for drugs offences, robbery and possession of weapons. His latest conviction, he was jailed for 5 years for applying Class A drugs, dangerous driving, attempted to escape from police and robbery. They were committed, these crimes, while he was serving a suspended sentence in the community for previous crimes. Of course, sentenced to 5 years doesn't mean he serves 5 years, so of course he's out now. But there is an effort by the Home Office, extraordinarily, to actually deport him. Now, he's claimed his rights under pre-Brexit freedom of movement rules mean that he cannot be returned to his native Portugal because he's lived here for more than 10 years, unless there are imperative grounds of public security. And the judge has said, I'm unable to find that imperative grounds are made out. I would have thought the imperative grounds are that he is a numerously convicted criminal and a danger to our country. But apparently not. Let's talk about this with Stephen Woolfe. He's director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Good morning to you, Stephen.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Now, look, OK, we're not saying this is a man. He's not a terrorist or a rapist or a murderer. Possession of a weapon. What? Knife, I'm assuming. Drug robbery, repeated offences, escaping, trying to evade arrest by the police. I'm sorry. He's clearly a threat to people in this country. Off you go. But the judge doesn't think there is an imperative ground of public security. What's going on?
Well, what's going on is quite a very small element of law that you've talked about in terms of the European pre-Brexit rules, but actually it comes back to, Julia, once more, the European Courts of Human Rights and the European Courts of Justice imposing their decisions on the UK when we've adopted it into our own law. I had a look at the case this morning. It's in the upper tribunal of the Immigration and Asylum Chamber. The judge was Judge Smith alongside another judge there as well. And the decision was made on the 25th of October. And what is extraordinary to most people, I think, is that the judge himself says these crimes were committed whilst he was serving a suspended sentence, and they were serious grounds for believing that he continues to pose a threat.
Yep.
So he accepts, as most normal people would do, that all the crimes that you've listed have said that he is a serious threat. But this is where it gets interesting, and why I've always argued that we must leave the European Courts of Human Rights.
Yep.
Is because the judge then said you have to prove that there are imperative grounds to remove this individual from the UK. And that goes to a judgment accepted into the UK in the Court of Human Rights involving Italy and a very strange Greek case that was brought into the UK. And it said the burden of proof of establishing the deportation is justified lies with the Home Office, true, but they must be both appropriate, necessary, and here's the key line, not impose an excessive burden on the individual.
Sorry, let me just get a tissue, because the poor man who committed robbery and drug dealing and had possession of a legal weapon, it might be an excessive burden on him. Let me just wipe my eyes for him, Stephen.
Yes, I know. And it goes even more extreme than that. He accepts that a crime can be regarded as difficult for people to accept. But the court case from the European Court says imperative grounds must show a really serious, kind of higher level, almost like terrorism.
Well, I was going to say robbery, not serious. Someone being terrified out of their mind while someone grabs their bag or their phone when it's on them. No, not serious at all. Having a weapon, not serious. I mean,
no.
This is extraordinary. I'm amazed we're allowed to even deport murderers and terrorists these days, frankly. But is
Well,
this,
it's quite difficult to do
is
that.
this a liberal interpretation by this judge, though? Because often what we've seen is this sort of this madness has infected our courts in a way that the interpretation of these laws. This judge could surely say, well, I consider public security to be free from theft and from robbery and people carrying weapons on the street. I consider that to be imperative grounds. Off you go. He could have used his own discretion, couldn't he?
There is a very fine line that this judge has to go, and I've got to be very fair, and as a barrister myself, also got to be incredibly careful along the lines that I express how he does this. Public security, he said, is a familiar expression, but it does not appear to be subject to judicial definition. It does not equate with national security. Oh. So it is possible that some would argue that there is some leeway for that judge to say the types of offences this individual are actually of public security. But he goes on to say, naturally, the Home Office has lost this once again. There must be some possibility of risk or danger to the security or the well-being of the nation, which the Secretary of State considers is desirable for the public good. My argument is surely it is of the public good to deport someone who is a career criminal and has all the types of aspects of a crime that you've described.
I mean, it is just mind-blowing. Again, if you are a nation state, you can't control who's coming into your country, and you can't remove people who've caused ill in your country who are not nationals. You're not a nation state anymore. I mean, it's that simple. You need to be able to protect your citizens. Stephen Woolfe, thank you so much for joining us. Always so on top of the detail of these things, and it is the detail that matters. Director at the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity.